Everybody, welcome back. It's your girl PJamma from PJamma Life. And today we're super excited because we get to talk about finally the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And so we have a special treat. So I'm going to turn it over to David, our friend. Pat, introduce yourself.
It's just me, Patrick. Same guy as always. Here I am.
And we have David, who has a special treat for us. He's going to reenact a little bit of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then we'll show you a clip. Go ahead, David.
All right. Hello, everybody. Great to be with you. If you're going to talk about Marvel, you got to talk about the wonderful Marvel toys. These particular versions from Hasbro. So here we have Sam. Make sure I get it right here. We got Sam here.
There's Sam.
We got Sam here, and I got to make sure he's in the camera. And we start off with an amazing opening scene here from him, but you'll see that this hero is in crisis. I always felt like this should have been given to someone else, he says of Captain America's shield. But this is part of the story arc to see that he will be worthy of it. But his partner in crime, another great friend of our own Brooklyn kid, Captain America, is the Winter Soldier, Bucky Barnes. Now, Bucky, like many people, after having some tough times in war, and then, I mean, it's happened to all of us where we've been captured by Nazis, held into ice, turned into a Russian assassin, and working for Hydra at the same time. That happens to all of us. He's going through some things. He's working some things out. A little bit of therapy, dealing with some nightmares. And the two of them are going to right the wrongs and make the world a better place. Here we go.
Woo! All right. So now for the boring clips after that wonderful recap. For those of you who can't visualize it, here's some clips.
The world has been forever changed. A few months ago, billions of people reappeared after 5 years away, sending the world into turmoil. We need new heroes.
Okay. I crossed the name off the list of my amends yesterday. Don't worry. I used all your 3 rules.
What the hell? Come on!
Remember me? I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. I'm James Bucky Barnes, and you're part of my efforts to make amends.
Sorry, I keep thinking, did you used to play for LSU? I mean, do I know you from somewhere? I knew it, Falcon. Yes, man. I've always wondered, how do you guys make a living?
When Steve first told me about the shield, the first words I said were, "It feels like it belongs to someone else." That someone else is Steve.
The world's a crazy place right now.
Join me in welcoming
Your new Captain America.
Well, not as entertaining as David's version, but it'll have to do. So, David, why don't you start us off with your thoughts and anything that you feel like we should consider in this episode? New World Order is the title.
Well, I think for me, and this will be the first and only time I do this compare and contrast, because I think WandaVision was amazing and stood on its own. But what I love from this entire genre and what Marvel has done with bringing these comic book heroes into the movies is they have something for everyone. There's a level of, there's a connection that you can have in different ways. We had a great time, kind of that harking back to those sitcoms from the 60s, 70s, 80s, even into the 90s. It's fantastic stuff. And now we're back into what is quintessential action adventure. Pat had said, called it a buddy movie. I think that's kind of where we're going with this. I am just blown away at how great this was, how excited I was from the beginning of this. And I love this story arc where you've got Sam, who was a noble, wonderful character that we saw in these other movies earlier. And here he's like, I don't feel that I'm worthy for this shield. And this is his journey to say, you know what? I was given this for a reason, and I need to accept that mantle. And I think we're going to see that great progression. We're going to see some, I think, again, with the Winter Soldier, with Bucky's character, showing his nobility, getting back to the heroic guy that we saw in the very first movie. Obviously he's kind of dealt with some things and he's come back. But I think we're going to see these two heroes on their journey to really embracing their true selves, which were good, patriotic Americans. And this is a time for that. So I'm psyched. I am so jazzed for the next few weeks. This is going to be fantastic.
I'll go next because I want Pat to come in with maybe some comic book lore and kind of talk about maybe some of the things going on. Unless you want to talk, Pat, about what your thoughts are.
Oh, go ahead.
So I thought this episode was really good. I thought that it was back to a classic kind of Marvel movie kind of action, especially the first 10 minutes or so. That was just movie quality action, and kind of harken back to when Falcon jumped out of plane, was like Captain America did in the Winter Soldier. That was similar to that. And I think there are a lot of callbacks to some of the especially kind of how I thought it was an interesting take on how do superheroes support themselves? How do they make a living? And I was kind of upset because I was like, okay, is Sam in the military? Is he colonel, or what's his rank? Because he should be getting at least his rank pay. But then I was like, he should be a government contractor and make all them bills. So I was like, huh? He's working for the Air Force and not making any money, but we got defense contractors out here making billions? I don't like that. And then I also thought that, to me, Tony Stark had billions, if not trillions of dollars. He didn't set up an Avengers fund to fund the, so they didn't have to work and maybe compromise themselves. I was like, that's just more of his selfishness and not thinking about his bros. And but I think Bucky's journey is going to be interesting because clearly he's suffering for PTSD. Clearly. He is not sleeping. He's seeing things. He's, it's pretty classic symptoms. And what he does to make amends was kind of squelchy. I was like, I don't know about that one. That was kind of, ooh. That's why you were a villain for 90 years. I mean, I'm like, oh, dude. He needs to stay in therapy. Maybe this is a good show to help people stay in therapy. But I thought that the story of Sam and trying to get a loan, I thought that was very telling and heartbreaking too. I thought to myself, these people went and literally saved the world. Not just people say that, they help somebody across the street, but they really literally save the world. But you can't get a loan. And then it was like, well, you haven't had a job in 5 years. Yeah.
Got blipped. Yeah.
It's the story of a
Should
lot
be
of
a
veterans.
balance of saving the world versus I was out of existence for 5 years. So I thought it was an interesting take on because I would imagine that might lead, regular soldiers who can't make a living sometimes turn to things that are illegal. So, or gray area stuff, mercenary work, private contracting work that's not, kosher or whatever, arms selling. So that's why I was kind of like, that'll be an interesting take to see if all the superheroes, the two stay, black and white, not, you know what I mean, in terms of their values, if they stay, true, or if there will be entering in some gray area, which I think would make an interesting story, because I was like, Sam and the Winter Soldier clearly need a publicist and a PR firm to work with them to get their money. So they don't have to go hat in hand to people. So it'll be interesting to see where they take it. And the final scene, there's a new Captain America who is, and I think he might have been in, you remember that movie Overboard with Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn? I think that's one of the sons, because, he put his son in the movie. Wyatt Russell is Kurt Russell's son. So it would be interesting if that was the kid in the movie. I think it is. And to see him all grown up. He's been in a couple of things. Lodge 49, I think he was in, and a couple of other things he's been in. So he's getting some work. So that's good. But overall, I thought it was a really good episode, and I want to see where they're going, but I think they're definitely going to explore some things of PTSD. I think also having to deal with what is the world become? What has it become? This new kind of group, the Flag Smashers, which is kind of a not great name.
Talk about needing a publicist.
Yeah. This thing about no borders and New World Order. Well, who's going to sit at the top of the New World Order? It's usually a villain, because nobody should be granted all that power. And if there are no rules, then there's chaos and crime. So anarchy doesn't work. So it'll be interesting to see how they explore that theme of what would the world look like without governments and borders, and what would the world become? So I don't know. What do you think, Pat?
Okay, for our first episode, it checked off a lot of the boxes. First episodes need to do in everything. It's going to do some character exposition. We're going to talk about, here's Sam's life now. Oh, here's Bucky's life now. Which makes it kind of a slow episode, but they did put that nice big chock full of action sequence right at the beginning to make sure everybody said, "Oh yeah, it's a Marvel product. Look at this," And if you didn't recognize, the villain in that little sequence, that was Batroc from Winter Soldier. He was the guy who was on the ship, went toe to toe basically with Captain America. Yeah. So a serious player, and he's the leader of this little band that was kidnapping that dude. So there's some things going on. We don't know what. Good episode. Like I said, it was a slow moving, but it's the first episode, and this is the thing, And then at the end, they throw that big old this false captain. It's like that Captain America looked like the kind of Captain America, like when you were a kid and you said, "Mom, can we get McDonald's?" She says, "No, we got McDonald's at home." He's what you got at home. It's like a crappy hamburger that your mom made, with 2 pieces of white bread, not a bun, and, no chopped onions, none of the good stuff on it. It's just like, here's a hamburger. We got Captain America at home. Don't worry, son. That's what it was. I was like, nah, that ain't Captain America. Yeah, and I'm like, ah. So I know where I suspect I know where this is going, but obviously, and if we remember from the first Captain America, when they were talking about what the super soldier serum does, people, it makes people that are good better, makes people that are bad worse. Which we had the Red Skull, who became incredibly hideous and already a bad guy, but he got the same serum that Captain America did, but it turned him out both different ways based on the personality characteristics. Then you're going to have this guy. We don't know. I mean, was he a Steve Rogers? I don't know.
Yeah,
I doubt it.
And there's no more super serum, so they never figured out how to redo the serum.
They've had 100 years almost. They'll figure it out, or they figure out something close enough, probably. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. Like I said, episode 1, a little slow, had a big action sequence, which maybe it was like a sugar rush. And you had the sugar fall afterwards because it went slow. And you saw, I thought the Bucky storyline was much more interesting. I have to say, just because him trying to do the amends with the guy whose son he basically popped for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And you put that together, it's just the very end of that whole sequence. Like, why is he being old friends with this old Japanese guy? What's this about? And then the old Japanese guy sets him up with this girl, and and they were having a good time. And all of a sudden, you saw the curtain fall. The bad times are back, and he goes over and he sees it again, and then you're like, oh shit, pardon my French, but
that was kind of
well, he's trying to find a way to. And I'm sure to Bucky, and to a certain extent, he's trying to maybe replace that son, by being this younger friend that's about his son's age, trying to hang out with the old guy, do stuff for him, kind of like the son would. So maybe that was his way of making amends but because he can't go up and say, hey, yeah, I kind of killed your son. Sorry. I really feel bad about it. Thanks. I had mark the box.
My bad.
Mark crosses that line off on his piece of paper and puts it back in his back pocket and then walks off. No, I feel like he's doing the right things. And I did have one of the more interesting characters I thought was the psychiatrist he had. The old lady who was like, I'm getting the notepad out. We're going to write this down again. You're going to write, and that was a really good interplay between those two. I enjoyed that about the most out of everything, really. So good story. Good intro.
It was really interesting. I thought that she said, I was a soldier for a long time too. So he's not just going to a therapist who might not understand what he went through. He's going to a soldier who's the therapist who understands what he went through. And I thought it was funny when he was trying to, do the old deception in the therapy session. And she was like, that's BS.
Right.
You don't just give up being a soldier like that. It's very hard to transition from civilian, back into civilian life, especially when you've been an assassin. Or like he said,
years,
how old are you? 106.
Yeah. It's hilarious. No, really. I got a driver's license. Hang on.
But that's the thing, though, because when we were talking about like the older gentleman, it's like if I'm 106 years old, yeah, I'm in this Buck Rogers kind of thing. But who's he going to have more in common with? Someone who's closer to his age, even though he's young. He's learning. He's got his little list. He's got his make amends list. But you remember Captain America had his little book trying to keep up with all the history. So it makes sense that you're going to connect with someone older like that from more of a shared experience. Yeah. But here, with the PTSD, this is the plight of the veteran, and they're both. Don't forget, Bucky was in the hunt. Was it? I forget. Mm-hmm. I don't remember. It was the 101st or whatever, the 100 whatever. But he obviously was in the U.S. military before. Sam, obviously serving in the more recent conflicts. You've got veterans. This is the plight of a veteran dealing with the struggle. They've saved, they stood up on a line and did their best to save the world and followed orders. And then what do you do when you come back? You try and assimilate and you can't, and you don't have the same opportunities. It's harder to get a loan. So there's some things here with that I think that it's going to be, at least subtly, again, that's the great thing about science fiction, where here's some real life issues, but we camouflage it with some of these larger than life things that are cotton candy to say, you know, these people, they truly we owe them a lot more than just thanks for your service. That there needs to be something beyond those words. It's a little shallow, it's a little hollow, and so we might be seeing some of that, and I hope so, because I think that's a group of folks, men and women of all ages, who really need that support from all of us, quite frankly.
Well, and if you look at the credits, the Air Force is one of the sponsors, I think, of the show. They're definitely seen in the credits. So I was like, well, this might be a little more military focused than the WandaVision was.
Oh, God, yeah.
You know, WandaVision was a little more critical of the military. And then this one is probably going to be more supportive of the military.
Well, I don't know. That guy, the guy took the shield, Captain America's shield from the Smithsonian, Pam. He's, you know, whether he's military or he's like NSA or something, you're still seeing that you know, there's a healthy need to distrust the government, and you saw that in both of the. I think you're going to see that in both of these shows.
Yeah, and I think, but this was certainly a what do you call it? Like a good commercial, PR commercial for the Air Force. I mean, they said Air Force about 15,000 times, and then they showed, you know, the fighting and the military, you know, the whoosh and the whoosh. And if I was a kid, I'd be like, yeah, I think I want to go. I want to fly some planes. So it was a great kind of promo for the Air Force. I ain't mad at them. You know, you got to do what you got to do. But I think there were a lot of good themes to explore. And I'm hoping that they get a chance to. And let's say some haze to our people out there. There's Electric Melanin. Hi, Electric Melanin. And Dwayne DeMarcos. Hey, Dwayne DeMarcos. Hey. And Dwayne asked that how much of this is covered in the comics so far. Can you answer any of that, Pat?
Well, you know, I'll be really honest. The Winter Soldier is a character that kind of rose to prominence or became a big deal during the period when I was kind of off comics because I was broke and raising kids. But you know, as I've gotten back into him, he is currently in the books right now, part of a group called Lethal Protectors, which if any of you have seen maybe the Suicide Squad film, which from the DC universe, where it's a bunch of anti-heroes or villains. They put them together to make this team that can do some of the dirty work, you know, wet work, whatever you want to call it. Well, that's what this is, but it's in the, you know, the Marvel universe, and he's one of those. So he's still an active character. You know, the Winter Soldier is something that was halfway introduced to me just through the films. So,
yeah. And I think that there's going to be, from what I understand, Sharon Carter will be back.
Yes.
And I think the government guy who had the beard, if you look at the trailer, I think he's going to be the bad guy because there's a shot of him and then there's all these screens behind him, the red screen. So I'm wondering if he's in fact in charge of the Flag Smashers. And if this Captain America, I think from what I understand, I was reading, it's he's the character who becomes the U.S. agent. He did take John, what was his name? John something. And he took on the mantle of Captain America. But I guess before that, he was a super bad guy. And so it's something weird about this character that's coming up. So, but I want to know how Sharon Carter is going to fit in because she's kind of like Bruce Wayne, right? She just is kind of out there fighting with Superman and with a woman Aquaman with no powers, but a couple of sticks or punching people with her little skinny arms. So
Well, I mean, Marvel does have a bit of a thing where they do that, where they have basically normal powered individuals with a very specialized set of skills come in and do stuff. I mean, Hawkeye, great example. What could he do? He could shoot arrows really good, but they gave him a bunch of badass arrows and stuff. Hawkeye.
But
the Black Widow, same thing.
Tony Stark tech to help regular people, hang out with the superheroes. With Tony Stark on, is Stark Industries still providing, them with the technology? Or I'm interested to find out what's going on with Stark Industries, and if Pepper Potts is still in charge of it, or if someone else came along.
Which leads me to the question I was wondering during that whole loan application scene. I'm like, why doesn't he just get on the phone to Pepper Potts and say, "Hey, I got a business opportunity"? She's like, "Oh, let me write you a check. That's like about a day's worth, 2 hours worth of my money. Here."
If that,
her personal money. Stark Industries made that in about 10 seconds. So he's like, "Oh yeah."
That was one of my favorite scenes in Justice League when they were the bank had foreclosed on Clark's home, and he had asked Bruce Wayne for help, and Bruce Wayne's like, he's like, "Oh, well, how'd you do it?" "I bought the bank." I mean,
even better in that movie, I just rewatched it again, the Zack Snyder cut. There was a bit where he's like, "What's your superpower?" And he's like, "I'm rich." And I'm like, "Okay, well,
works for me."
Yeah, and so that is something that I'm really glad they're finally addressing, because we did see it addressed in The Watchmen with was it Ozymandias? He used his superpower to become the wealthiest man. I think he was the wealthiest man, right, on the planet. Yeah. And so I'm like, there should be a fund or something. You shouldn't have to worry about, and this is a parallel with veterans too, right? You shouldn't have to worry about our heroes having to have shelter, have food, have the basic necessities of life, given what they've done to serve their country. So I think that's a great, like David said, a great message that I'm glad they're exploring in the series. So it is, I don't know what you all think, but I think it's going to be something interesting coming up. And but is Captain America in space? Can they regenerate Captain America and make him young again? I mean, I thought it was great to see Rhodey pop up in this one. There was no warning that Rhodey would be in the series. So I'm wondering if other of the Avengers will make appearances and they just won't say anything, and we'll see who shows up. So it'll be interesting, I think. But here's the question. Here's where I think they messed up. How is Rhodey walking? Does he have bionic legs?
He's got those cool braces on. They showed it a couple, 2 or 3 times in the movies.
Did they? I didn't see the braces.
It looks like basically a belt with some things that go down the sides of his legs.
Okay, so he does have like
Stark
but how come he still got braces and not a bionic leg? I mean, they could have given him bionic leg.
Well, I don't know. I'm not Tony Stark. I don't know. I know my name says Obi-Wan Stark, but that ain't me. I'm just a dumb brother.
Made Tony give him an exoskeleton, or call over the Wolverine and give him some of that super juice blood, and completely heal him real quick.
Old Tony Stank. Yeah. Still the best after credits scene.
And he was Tony Stank. Okay, so any last words on Captain America? I just can't let it go. The Winter Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
It's going to be great. I mean, Marvel has done such a great job at making a wonderful package and a really good product. I mean, even when they leased out their stuff, you look at the Netflix series, and those were all solid for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say even the weakest ones were decent. So I mean, they've got really good stories. They've got really good writers, and if they just get someone to really make a good and the other thing Marvel's done really good is have cohesive stories which span several series, programs, books, whatever you want to call it. There's everything meshes well. So even if they do just a series with, Iron Fist, if they brought Iron Fist back, which I'd love to see, by the way, he was like one of my favorite characters. Bring Iron Fist into the MCU through the Disney Plus platform as opposed to the Netflix one. I mean,
really?
I'd love to see them do it. I don't know if they're going to, but just an example. They put some of these characters, it would mesh because that's the way they do. They've got this stuff mapped out. Excuse me. They got this stuff so mapped out and so intertwined that the story. I mean, they've got probably 70, 80 years worth of comic books and stories that they can pick and choose which ones work and which ones are going to be good for them. And they just put it all together. They just, let's pick this storyline and put it right here. And this will be great because we can bring in these 5 different these 5 different books, these 5 different characters. We can make movies with them, Yeah.
More action figures.
Good Lord, yes. They're just sitting around printing money at this point, I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, and I'd like to see some crossover. So I'd like to see either Photon or Spectrum, whichever she's going to be, to come over to this series because I think she'd be great. And I think she'd be a great love interest for the Falcon. That would be awesome. And so I don't know, but I hope that they do some of that crossover to keep everything fresh and to get ready for, because everything is to get ready for the movies. So when the movies come out, you've had a lot of storyline leading up to a very probably complicated plot of the movie. So I was just sad that they didn't bring in Doctor Strange in WandaVision, but maybe we'll get another one of the heroes in this one. Maybe the Hulk. I don't know. Bruce Banner.
He's the doctor. I mean.
Okay, so is Bruce Banner? Does he just stay the Hulk with glasses? There's never revert back to his natural body. He just stays a gamma body.
Well, there's several different. I mean, the thing is, they start going into the multiverse stuff after a point where you have Planet of Hulk, Red Hulk. There's all kinds of different Hulk versions where they have things going out. Well, the multiverse. I mean,
please, Marvel, don't bring in multiverse other characters that are weird and dumb.
They're like going Bizarro. To be. If you can't see this coming, you didn't even pay attention. They're doing the multiverse of madness. That's what they're leading up to. They're wanting to bring in, and that's also a smart move for them, just because the simple fact that Mark Ruffalo is not going to look like Mark Ruffalo forever. This look like he is now. They're going to want to bring in somebody. I'm just saying he's not going to look like old Hulk then. And but they're going to bring in these other guys, and they can start transitioning the stories to other Hulks or other multiverse universes of Hulk. I mean, look what they're doing with Thor. Here's the first time they're going to do it. They're going to take Thor off into the Guardians of the Galaxy for a movie or two, but then they're going to bring in Thor as Natalie Portman, as the female Thor, which was in the books, which is awesome. I mean, they're going to
stop right there. That is not awesome. I don't want to see Natalie Portman as the Thor or whatever, the God of Thunder. I just think that is the dumbest idea that Marvel will have. And she just I cannot envision it. You heard it here first. I don't see it. Now,
Okay,
I'm
it
perfectly
happened. So move
able
on.
to be
So,
made
yes.
wrong on this, but
Hey, you know what? They did a great job with everything else. You've already made up your mind. Who would you think? You know who I thought would have been good?
3 movies to get it together, and she stunk.
You know who I thought would have been a good female Thor is I can't remember her name. It was the actress that played Brienne of Tarth on Game of Thrones.
Which star? Sansa?
No, it was Brienne of Tarth. She was the Kingsguard from Renly Baratheon.
Oh
I
yeah.
can't remember. She had the physicality to do a good
Captain
female
Phasma.
Thor.
The Guardian, the one the guy was always trying to hit on.
Yeah, the one that her and Jamie Lannister hooked up with, and it turned him back to.
Yes. Oh, how they messed up her
Gwendolyn
character at
Phil and
the
Barrett.
end.
I love her.
Yes.
It's Gwendolyn.
Yes.
I don't know her last name.
Oh, Gwendolyn, yes, something I can't remember.
Yes.
Yes,
She would have been, wow, that would have been perfect. I mean, or like bring her in as Valkyrie, like one of the Valkyrie or something. But yeah, I think, yes, I totally agree with that. I absolutely agree with that.
in the
Natalie
story arc,
Portman,
but
come on,
in the story arc, it is Jane Foster who does become the female Thor. It's Jane Foster. It's not somebody else.
Thor. He just totally becomes a complete loser and drops the hammer and
he becomes the ruler of Asgard because Odin is gone now. So he has to go be King Thor. He can't just be doing the run around the 9 realms and solving problems.
He gave it to Valkyrie to run.
Yes, in the movie, he did. He let her run New Asgard there in Norway or wherever it was. But in the book, Thor has to go back and run Asgard because he's the heir presumptive.
Wasn't she his girlfriend? It's so now.
Natalie Portman, yes, she was for a while. I mean, this would have been like this Golden Age stuff when he had a thing, and that was the Donald Blake character, his human incarnation of Thor.
Uh-huh.
And the Natalie Portman character, I'm drawing a blank on what her character's name was, Jane Foster. She was like a nurse when they first got together, you know, because he was a doctor and he found the stick that turned him into Thor, but actually he was Thor being punished. I mean, there's a long story arc through that whole thing, why he is a human hiding, you know, and so he, you know, him and this nurse kind of, you know, do what doctors and nurses have been doing since, you know, the Civil War or earlier. But, you know, so they kind of, you know, they fall in love, you know, and so eventually she's the one that becomes Thor before Thor becomes Thor again. So it's a long story. And right now in the books, Jane Foster is a Valkyrie. So
okay, yeah, but that Gwendolyn, she would have been, yes, that's who I would envision as.
Well, they may have talked to her, and she just may not want to do it. You know, she may have had enough of the swords and sorcery crap. You know,
she's fantastic, though. And you talk about
I'm not looking forward to that one. I mean, after Thor: The Dark World or whatever it was called, which was the worst. They got to get somebody with a really great script and a really great story. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you know, the thing is though, okay, even though Natalie Portman doesn't have the physicality to be Thor, Mark Ruffalo isn't the Hulk either. But you know what? CGI can fix a lot of problems. Just saying, as far as the physical portions of it. And Natalie Portman is a great actress. Watch V for Vendetta and come back with me, okay?
Yeah, I watched that movie because I like the Wachowski brothers, so I've watched that movie over and over. But I still think she's not great. And
Hugo Weaving in that movie, I tell you what, you want to talk about a good movie? That's a good movie.
I mean, the story is good, but she's like par, not quite above par. She's not quite subpar, but she's
why do why do you hate Natalie Portman? Because you might as well just say it. I hate Natalie Portman. Just say it. I hate Natalie Portman.
She's not great. And I know David is itching to say she was great in Star Wars, but
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay.
She was okay. She was okay in Star Wars, but you know what? Go watch The Professional. Have you watched Leon the Professional?
The Professional,
yes,
she was outstanding.
Was when she was what, 12 or 14? I don't know what happened. She got the big head, and now she's just not the roles I've seen her in, like Star Wars and then Thor. They were not right for her, I think. So I liked her in Black Swan. I thought that was great, and The Professional was great, but
you know, I don't think anybody looked good in Thor. I mean, you know, Chris Hemsworth, obviously, he was a handsome guy and a good actor. I just don't think those stories, for me, and I'm not the comic book guy, for me, the Thor movies, they always had a little bit of a weakness to them. Ragnarok, I think, was the best.
Yes.
Of those. I mean, that really kind of hit stride. Made some great toys, but that Ragnarok to me was the best. Have we lost Pat? Have we said too many bad things about Thor and Natalie Portman?
He'll be back. There he is.
Sorry, my speaker went dead. I had to plug it in real quick. I lost like last 2 minutes of conversation because I'm like, I can see it's like a silent movie. And I'm like, crap. So plugged in. I'm back together. I'm good. Calm down.
Well, it's just us saying that you're wrong and we're right. So that but before we get too far off, there was also something else great that happened this week. The Oscar nominations are out. Yay! So there are a lot of good movies out. Most of them, if not all of them, are streaming. So because of the situation we're in, so the first time you could sit at home and watch all of the movies online. And I think there are some really good movies out there. And here at PJamma Life, we're going to do our coverage of the Oscar nominations. And so we'll be going week by week, starting probably in the March, early throughout April until the 24th, because the 25th is the Oscar broadcast. Each week we'll take a category and talk about, after the Winter Soldier, we'll talk about what do we think of the nominations and say who we think will win that category. So check us out. I think it's going to be fun, and it'll be interesting to see which movies people think are going to win and why. And we'll look for you to share your thoughts as well. So we're about out of time. Any final words from the fellas?
Get your popcorn. Be ready to watch every week, because here we comes. This show is movie quality. Pam said it early, and I agree. I think it's movie quality. Just get ready and enjoy the action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the first action sequence was as good as anything from a theatrical release, and Natalie Portman's not that bad. Get over yourself.
Oh my gosh. So that is what we're working with here.
Wow, really? You're throwing those rocks. I'm living in that glass house. Okay.
So join us next week where we'll talk about the second episode. There's only 6 episodes of this show. So we're going to have to watch them, and it's going to be a quick one. So everybody join us next week on PJamma Life. Bye.